Alright, we're wrapping this one up. Harry's about to lie his butt off.
Ability. In the Oprah interview, you accuse members of your family of racism. You don't even...
What?
Well,
The British press said
He's
that.
so fast
Right.
to lie, and that's so funny. Look at Tom, he's like, right.
Did Meghan ever mention
Yes, she
they're
did.
racist?
she said there were troubling comments
Repeatedly.
about
There
Archie's
was
skin
concern
colour.
about his skin colour.
Right. Wouldn't you describe it?
Going back to the
Yeah.
difference.
This is
between
hilarious.
my
He's like, we
understanding-
didn't say they were racist. We said they had a problem with their skin color. The press said they were racist. What?
is because
Okay.
of my own experience. The difference between racism
Oh
and
my
unconscious
gosh,
bias,
these
the two things are
stupid
different.
buzzwords like racism versus unconscious bias. Like, what the heck does this mean? And again, I feel like so many of these words, like, people say them because they sound smart, because they've just spread around, but they don't necessarily mean things like what the racist versus unconscious bias. And then it's basically trying to do that same thing where he's accusing people of things but acting like he's being understanding.
But once it's been acknowledged or pointed out to you as an individual or as an institution that you have
Okay, got
unconscious
it.
bias, you
All
therefore
right,
have
he
an
took like a
opportunity
freshman year liberal arts class, I guess, or something, or read it.
to learn and grow from that in order so that you are part of the solution rather than part of the
I believe
problem.
it was
Otherwise,
Lady C who said that he specifically threatened to accuse his grandmother and parents of racism when they didn't behave the way that he wanted them to around Meghan. That it was a specific threat.
bias then moves into the category of racism.
But I suppose, isn't there a danger that people are going to think bad? You haven't identified which members of the family...
And I will never talk. And
He's
I will
a
never
liar.
talk about that. What happened to Ngozi Fulani is a very good example of the environment within the institution, and why after the Oprah interview they said that they were going to bring in a diversity czar. That
Okay,
happened.
so basically saying, I never said they're racist. By the way, the environment is alluding to them being racist.
Everything that they said was going to happen hasn't happened. I've always been.
And I'm not
open
saying there's not
to-
racism in the world. I'm saying that he accused his whole family of being racist, and so did Meghan, and now he's saying he didn't do that and blaming it on the press.
To help them understand
Shut
their part
up.
in it, and especially when you are the monarchy at the.
So,
You have
so
a
this
responsibility.
is a really
and quite-
big thing. And again, I live in a city where this sort of thing's really popular, and this idea, again, of like, everybody's wrong except me, and we need to educate them, and the way I'm acting doesn't matter. And mostly it's like 18 to 20-year-olds. They take like a freshman class in college, and then they say everyone's racist. Here's a really funny example. I had a college class professor, actually from Africa, from Cameroon, and he grew up on a coffee farm. He became super successful. He experienced actual, like, real racist stuff. And then all these 20-year-olds were constantly, like, speaking over him, treat him like garbage, because they were telling him about privilege and race and stuff like that, because they had all their words about unconscious bias, and because he was more conservative and very ambitious. He was very successful, and he like believed that America was a good country and things. They were constantly over speaking him, treating him like garbage, to teach him about these sort of ideas about unconscious bias and blah blah blah. It was hilarious because he didn't agree with them. They treat him like garbage. It was disgusted how they treated him, but they were telling him that everyone's racist, so that makes them good people. That's hilarious. They're the authorities.
Really, people hold you to a higher standard than others. Certainly, the media should, right? So the way that I've
Another
looked into
interesting
my own
thing, I'll tell you, I was here in the US, didn't know much about Meghan Markle. The first thing that we heard was, because that's what they put out, was the royal family's racist. So obviously they said that, and that Meghan and Harry are these great people. And then after seeing Meghan Markle, it's like, oh, she's a nasty person. A lot of people also did not like her and had no idea what her background was. Because if he's talking about unconscious bias would be unconscious. Like, their whole thing is like, oh, it's because of who her mother is. If you look at Meghan, let's be honest, right? Like, very few people look at her and say, oh, she's of an African background. You think like, oh, she's like a tan valley girl or something. Like, you don't think that. And I don't know if that's supposed to be racist, like you're not accepting her racial identity. Doesn't make any sense to me. So if it's unconscious bias, it should be based on appearance. Doesn't really make much sense whatsoever. Oh, one last thing. My whole video started being about Meghan Markle because I was just breaking down various celebrities, and I was breaking down an indicator of lying. I had nothing against her. I picked her specifically just because I found an interview and she was showing that indicator so much. I knew very little about her. It was just, okay, this indicator of lying, I'm making an educational video. It was early last year, and she happened to show it repeatedly, so it's just a very easy video to do it with. I've broken down videos of many people, so it definitely was not like going after her or anything.
And for what I've seen and what I've heard, yes, you're right. The key word is concern, which was troubling. But you speak to any other couple, mixed race couple around the world, and you will probably find that the white side of the family have either openly discussed it or secretly discussed it.
So this is another weird thing too, this culture where it's like the only thing you need to do to be a good person is like accuse other people of things. It's just... The other thing too, and I know something that's popular, is what is the most upsetting, offensive way I can interpret something, right? Like that's like a goal. It's like, okay, they said, is the kid gonna be tan? It's like, okay, what does that mean? That means it must be unconscious bias, but that means that they're horrible people, and that means that everybody has unconscious bias except for me because I'm talking about it, right?
That is part of a bigger conversation that needs to be had. But to say that that doesn't happen around the rest of the world, but it just happened there, that's not true. But again, for me, the difference is...
I'm sure it does happen. Sometimes it's just for fun. Again, I think I've already said this. There's a mixed race couple who were my neighbors in the old building, and we all joked about it. We're like, they joked about it. We're like, hopefully there's no red afros, and, saying like, oh, you got a good looking kid. It was just like, everyone was friendly. This was in a different part of the country where it's like, everyone's a little more chill. But Harry had this conversation, right? He made the joke about ginger jeans, which I believe his family was making. But again, I think that's very unfair. Like what was this conversation? He's like, oh, I hope I don't have ginger jeans. And then someone in his family, or I hope the kid doesn't get my ginger jeans. Someone in the family's like, ah, ha, ha, yeah, maybe they'll have a tan. And he's like, racist, racist, racist. And then went and told everybody, which is just ridiculous.